Four Keys Book Arts presents Handbinding A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. The abridged version. Hi everyone, I'm Dennis. Welcome to the Bindery. This book will begin its journey as a stack of printed sheets that have been organized into gatherings. The pages have been printed in such a way that when folded together, they'll appear in the correct order. Once folded, the signatures are put in a press to flatten overnight. Handmade marbled papers will be used for the book's decorative endpapers. Polishing with beeswax and an agate burnisher gives the paper a smooth, glossy finish and brings out the colors. The marbled papers are carefully folded in half as well, and are then glued to folded sheets of blank paper that match the pages of the book. These get pressed as well until the glue is dried. The resulting laminated pages are free of bubbles or ripples. The next day the pages come out of the press nice and flat, so it's time to prepare them to be sewn together. A finishing press is a specialized tool designed for holding books during production. Some sacrificial boards support the spines of the gatherings while the sewing holes are cut with a saw. This method is quick and creates recesses to accept the support cords. The book is now ready to be sewn. The cords have been prepared and are waiting on a tool called a sewing frame. A needle is attached to one end of a length of waxed linen thread, and some pieces of wood provide some extra clearance for the needle. The book will be sewn from back to front, starting with the back end paper. The thread passes around each cord and back into the book through the same holes. When the sewing of that gathering is complete, the thread gets pressed into the paper with a bone folder. Sewing on the next signature is done in the same manner and returns the thread to the start position. There it gets secured with a knot and the loose end trimmed. Then sewing proceeds as before. As gatherings are added to the book, the free end of each one is secured with a special kettle stitch. As more pages are added and sewn, the book slowly comes into being. While far from complete, what was once just a collection of papers is starting to look like a book. The book now goes back into the finishing press to prepare the spine. Glue is applied between the cords to support the book for the next few steps of the binding. When dry to the touch, a line is marked for the front edge, and the book is placed between boards and into the combination press. A special tool called a plow is used to trim the pages. It has a flat blade that is advanced slowly by turning the handle. It cleanly cuts through just one or two pieces of paper at a time. The result is a smooth, even edge. With that done, it's time to work on the book's spine. It gets put in the press without boards and aligned to the lines that mark the thickness of the covers. Glancing blows with a hammer begin to shape the spine, bending the paper to the front and back. This is done slowly and carefully, and when done, the book now has shoulders, which will help support the cover boards. To preserve that shape, the spine is now fully glued, including the cords. When the glue is dried, the top and bottom edges, called the head and tail, can be trimmed as well. Thick sacrificial boards also protect the shoulders while in the press. The plow is used in one direction only to carefully cut through the shoulder. Full cuts are taken once the blade engages with the text block. A blade is used to cut through the other shoulder. The entire operation is now repeated at the other end. With the book fully trimmed, it's time to prep the edges for decoration. Sandpaper and a wooden dowel that matches the radius of the foredge are used to achieve a satin-smooth finish on the pages. Acrylic paint thinned with water provides the base color. A single coat is brushed on and allowed to dry. The accent color is used undiluted and is sponged on sparingly. The intent is to create a mottled effect. A mixture of thinned glue is then sprinkled on with a toothbrush. Genuine 24-karat gold leaf will be used as the final element. The gold is extremely delicate, which will be beneficial for the desired effect. The gold is tapped with a stiff brush and sprinkled onto the book. The tiny flakes will stick wherever they come into contact with the glue. Rubbing down with a burnisher fixes the gold and polishes the paper. Finally, a coating of microcrystalline wax will seal the edges of the pages and gets buffed with a soft cloth. The pages will remain lightly stuck together until the other edges are decorated as well. When all three edges are done, the book is flexed to separate the pages. Endbands and a ribbon are next to be added to the book. The ribbon is glued in place first and allowed to dry. The endbands are stitched directly to the book and woven around a cotton core. 2 colors of silk thread are used to complement the color scheme. The endbands add support to the ends of the spine, and of course, they add a decorative touch as well. The weaving is finished with a knot on the spine. To finish, the cores get trimmed very close to the weaving thread. Some pieces of gray board are cut to size for the covers. 4 mm extra is allowed around the 3 edges. The spine now gets lined with some soft handmade paper. Small pieces are glued into the gaps, and these will help bring the spine flush with the level of the cords. The paper backing further strengthens the endbands and bookmark. A second layer of paper is added to create a uniform surface, and then the spine is allowed to dry completely. The boards need to be pierced to lace in the cords. The positions of the cords are laid out, and then an awl is used to make the holes. A second row is marked with dividers, with most of the hole positions being offset to the first ones. Channels are then cut between the holes on the inside of the boards to accept the cords, and similar channels are cut on the outside. The spine is sanded to even out any high points. It is then glued out to accept a flat paper tube called a hollow. The purpose of the hollow is to allow the spine to flex independently of the covering material. An additional layer of card is added to support the spine covering. A strip of stiff leather is cut into small pieces, which get beveled to make up some false bands. False bands add the look of a tight back binding while gaining the structural benefit of the hollow back binding style. They're simply glued into place and allowed to dry. The parchment liner gets removed from the hollow, then the ends are trimmed flush with the end bands. The sides of the hollow are slit at the ends to allow for the leather turn-ins. The inner layer also gets trimmed to below the level of the end band. If left in place, this would be visible in the finished book. With all that preparation done, the book is ready to have the covers attached. The ends of the cords are called slips and need to be frayed out to blend into the covers. Pulling and scraping them removes fibers, which tapers the ends. The slips are given a coating of glue, then are trimmed and twisted to make them easier to lace into the first row of holes. The slips then get threaded back to the outside. The ends are trimmed to length and get spread out to lay flat. A few taps with a hammer compresses the fibers. A pressing tin is inserted to prevent making impressions in the text block. Then the book is placed between pressing boards and put into the press under maximum pressure. After an hour, the book is taken out and the other cover is attached in the same manner. With the covers attached, this binding is now a fully functioning book. All that remains is to cover and decorate it. The boards are lined inside and out with paper to help hide the shape of the board attachments. The outside of the boards get covered with cardstock. On the inside, a light but strong paper is used. These are allowed to dry under pressure to prevent bubbles or ripples. The faint bumps from the slips can now be sanded down without damaging them. The text block will get a protective wrap. This will safeguard it while the leather gets applied, and will be removed later. A piece of calfskin leather is cut to size for the covering. It's quite thin, but will still need paring down in certain areas. A modified spoke shave is used to thin large areas of the leather. It's been ground to a lower cutting angle than a woodworking spoke shave. The area of the spine is carefully thinned. The edges are paired as well, which will reduce bulk at the turn-ins. A final bevel is added to the edges with a paring knife. Plain water is sponged on to soften the leather. Wheat flour paste is applied to the other side as the main adhesive. Paste has been used in bookbinding for centuries and is both easy to make and long-lasting. At this point I realized I forgot to trim the leather at the ends of the spine. This would have been easier before applying the paste, of course, but better late than never, I suppose. Those areas now get a quick bevel with the paring knife. Fresh paste is then reapplied, and the book gets paste as well. The spine is aligned with the center of the leather to keep everything even as it's wrapped around the book. The corners need to be mitered to fit around the boards. The leather gets turned back, and a beveled miter is made just outside the impression of the corner. Both front and back corners must be mitered before the leather can be turned in at this end. The book is placed on end, and the cover is opened to allow access. More paste is added as necessary. The paste dries slowly, which leaves ample time for this finicky procedure. Opening the book also opens the hollow, which makes space to work down the leather. The leather first gets tucked into the hollow behind the end band. The slits in the hollow allow the leather to be turned in around the boards as well. Everything gets gradually massaged into place until the correct shape is achieved. The entire process can now be repeated at the head of the book. Here you can see the benefit of the two-part protective cap. With the end caps complete, the four edges can now be turned in. The corners need to be carefully molded and pleated on the inside. This is a gradual process, as the leather is slow to conform to its new shape. The final step is to work on the bands. They get molded into place with the bone folder, and then a specialized tool called a band nipper is used to refine their shape. To maintain that definition as the leather dries, the book gets tied up with twine. The pegs on the finishing press are there for just this purpose. The cords will hold the leather in place until the paste is dried sufficiently. In the evening, the leather is dry enough to be untied. The book is dried to the touch, but there's still some residual moisture. As the leather dries completely, it tends to warp the boards outward. Lining the inside of the boards with more paper, called infilling, will counteract that warping. Trimming the turn-ins will make them neat and also provide more surface area for the infills. A slightly smaller piece of leather could have been used, but better too large than too small. Infilling will also bring the level of the boards up flush with the turn-ins, which will help hide them under the marbled paper. Some strong light paper is cut to fit the inside covers and is glued in place. The book is pressed long enough for the glue to set up, then is opened and allowed to dry overnight. The caps need to be removed in order to glue down the end papers. The temporary waste sheets must also be removed. Tearing them is safer than cutting them and risking damaging the text block. It feels wrong, but it's by design. Some waste paper protects the text block as glue is applied to the paste down. The cover is then closed and the other end paper gets glued down as well. Blotting paper is added, then the book is placed in the press under light pressure. A set of 8-point handle letters will be used to impress the title and author. Labels of red leather will go well with the overall design of the book. A hot plate is used to heat up the brass tools, and some dressing solutions are readied for the leather. Genuine 24-karat gold leaf will be used to highlight the lettering. Handling the gold must be done extremely carefully. Both the knife and the suede pad must be completely free of oils, as gold leaf will stick instantly, though not permanently, to anything oily. A breath of air flattens the gold. Refined egg white, called glaire, is applied to the leather. The glaire will fuse with the gold under the heat of the tools, fixing it permanently in place. The gold must be cut into manageable pieces. It can then be picked up on a bit of cotton and then applied to the leather. The hot letters are impressed with a quick rocking motion. Working from the middle outwards helps to keep the words centered. Whether the gold sticks or not is uncertain, as preparation, temperature, and technique are all at play here. Several attempts are required until an acceptable result is achieved. A gold rubber removes the excess gold, leaving the lettering behind. Another label for the author's name is prepared. The labels are then cut to size, and the inside of each is beveled with a paring knife to hide the edges of the leather. Wee paste is once again used as the adhesive for the labels. They're placed in the second and third panels of the spine, which is a very traditional look. They get worked down and are allowed to dry completely before the next stage of decoration. A variety of brass wheels and stamps will be used to add some further embellishment to the covers. As with the handle letters, these will need to be heated. Some reference lines are first lightly impressed around the edges of the book. Egg glaire is applied only where needed. More gold is laid out and cut into thin strips. All the areas to be worked are covered in gold before any tooling begins. The straight lines are impressed first with a tool called a fillet. The lines are started and stopped well away from the ends. The corners get finished with a small straight tool called a palette. A decorative stamp is then used to add accents at the corners. A solvent is used to remove the last of the stray gold, which leaves the design shining bright. The entire process is now repeated on the front cover. This method of gold tooling a book is essentially unchanged from how it was done in centuries past. The final tooling will be done on the spine. The steps are the same as before, though the curved surface is an additional challenge. Touch-ups to the lettering can also be done at this time. Gold lines along the bands will help them really stand out. While a harp motif stamp is used in the middle of each panel. And with a few final touches, this deluxe edition of A Christmas Carol is ready to go under the tree. Thank you to everyone who's enjoyed the series. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done so yet. I really do appreciate it. Now, please, pour yourself your favorite drink and join me in enjoying this book's final unveiling. Cheers! Thank you all so much for watching. I wish the very best of the season to each and every one of you. From my family to yours, Merry Christmas.